I can see you've started recording the session. Thank you.
Yes.
Madam Safina, quick question. So the open question answer round, are they going to be typing in the questions on the chat window or?
My team is handling 4 pages. So they will be on, we will be handling on all the 4 pages. And at the same time, we never know where the questions will come. So wherever it comes, we will collect all the questions and we will put it.
Read out the question. So are you going to read out the question for me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, yes. Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, so now I'm going live.
Meeting is now streaming live on Facebook.
Yes. Hello and good evening. Welcome to the session of career opportunities in aviation industry post COVID-19. Let me just give you a little introduction about me before we could start. I'm Safina, counselor, coach and entrepreneur from Sanz International. I started my journey straight from college to entrepreneur journey, and today I own a 3 successful business and traveled across 22 plus countries and explored many more opportunities in learning and development domain. My motto is empowering people is my passion, and my credentials are like I'm a doctorate in psychology, postgraduate in Masters of Business, certified counselor, certified NLP master practitioner, accelerated learning, mindfulness, sales mastery, memory management, and game of life. So we have some of the achievements, like we have been able to clinch the award of Entrepreneur of the Year award by Global Triumph Foundation, School Education Award by Malaysia Minister, Best Curricular Development of Karnataka Education Award, Panelist in School Education for a Future Teaching Methods, Operation Head in the Grace Ladies Singapore, member of so many organizations like BNI, Lion, HECT, AIEC, MIA, and more. Let me give you a brief detail about what exactly is our company. Sanz International is a new generation finishing school. We focus on admission guidance, test preparation, study abroad services, and visa assistance. We established in January 2012. It's a brainchild of me and my business partner, Nadimullah Khan. We cater our services in 22 plus countries. We have 3,000 plus students in our community, and we have been able to get most of the awards in the various departments as the best education. And we have featured in many of the medias and internationally awarded and internationally recognized academy. And it's our privilege to introduce our speaker of the day, who is Pilot Rizwan Taj. He is the admission and the sales manager of Airways Aviation Academy globally. He is also a chief theory knowledge instructor in aviation Montenegro. He has completed his education in the pre-qualification of physics, chemistry, maths, and computer science from St. Joseph, Bangalore in 2008, and he decided towards true goal of being a pilot. He completed his commercial pilot training in Florida, USA in 2011, after which he also acquired his instructor rating in 2007. What do we talk about his experience? He is the man for the right session today. He has a knowledge of all the profound licenses in the field of aviation, and he has an FAA and works for Airways Aviation, which provides the ESA, CASA, and ICAO license. He has spearheaded the foundation school and taught as well as in Airways Aviation Dubai. He is currently a chief theoretical knowledge instructor. He is responsible for all the aspects of theoretical knowledge training in Montenegro. He ensures that each student and instructor meets the core standards, training requirements, and objectives. We are very happy to welcome Mr. Pilot Rizwan Taj. Over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Safina. Greetings, everyone. Safina has already introduced me, and I'm Pilot Rizwan. I'm also one of the flight instructors, and thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. I couldn't stop myself from blushing, but yeah, thank you so much. It's been a while. Wow, that was pretty good. All right, so I'm going to jump straight in, and today's session, as Ms. Safina just mentioned, is about career in aviation. Now, I know there's a lot of things happening in the world globally, and I would like to start off by saying I really wish health and safety to everyone around the world. I know we're going through unprecedented times, and unprecedented time calls for unprecedented measures, and there's lots of changes being happening in every industry around the world. Aviation is on the forefront, and I must mention that yes, things have changed a lot in the last 3 months, but nevertheless, aviation is a very strong industry, and it has always performed, and it has always been around, and it has actually survived a lot of crisis before. So we're going to get into that in a minute. Let me go ahead and introduce my academy where I work for. I'm going to go ahead and start my screen share now. Now, I work for a global flight school called Airways Aviation Academy. I hope you can see my screen now. So Airways Aviation is a global flight school with 7 training locations as of today. We've got 3 training locations in Australia, Gold Coast, Sunshine Coast, and there's also one in Lismore. Back in Europe, where I'm currently based in, we have our amazing facility in Montenegro. It's literally in the heart of Europe. It's the gem of Balkans. It's one of those countries nobody has heard about, but it's a hidden gem. It's quite beautiful. So that's where I am right now. I'm streaming live from Montenegro, Podgorica, the capital city. It's a beautiful city, and we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. We also have our global head office in France. To be very specific, in south of France, Montpellier. We also have our fair weather flying facility in Spain, Huesca Airport. We also have our flight training location and ATPL theory classes and so on, which are being conducted as of today in Oxford Airport. So these are our 7 locations. So that's a short introduction about our academy. Jumping straight in, I would like to talk not just about pilot training, but I'm going to be talking about the entire aviation industry. Within the next 15 minutes, I want to give you guys a good understanding of what to expect in the aviation industry in the next couple of years. As I just mentioned, these are some of our pilot training academies: France, Oxford, Huesca, Podgorica, Gold Coast, Sunshine Coast, and Lismore. Now, about us, I'm sure you guys want to know a little bit more about the academy. Airways Aviation is a global flight school, as I mentioned, but it's also a 30-year-old company with experience in not just pilot training, but we also excel in aircraft maintenance, ground handling, and cabin crew. So these are the 4 major industries. These are like sub-industries in the aviation industry, which we focus on. Our vision is to train, educate, shape, and also deliver the new generation of aviation industry professionals. We are an academy which is strategically located in different parts of the world to make sure that we are able to give you different licenses, conversions, and to make sure that you're a global and a very professional pilot when you graduate with us, because we're not just a flight school from one city or one country in the world. We are a global flight school, so we understand the differences between the licenses and the requirements of different parts of the world. Our mission, the Airways Aviation Group, the mission is to continue to grow and enhance a strategic position and world-class facilities to provide students and industry partners training solutions and convenient access to our outstanding resources and so on. Now, one of the most amazing things I would tell you about our mission is to make sure that we rapidly, socially, and very responsibly deliver pilot training. What I'm trying to say is, we are one of the first flight schools in the world who has taken up the challenge of making sure that we're not just delivering pilot training, but we are also making sure that we are contributing to the planet Earth. We're basically trying to make sure we use greener initiatives and so on. We've started using diesel engines instead of, just as a small example, instead of using the 100 LL, which is low lead, has a lot of lead, for example. We have started using diesel engines, even the Cessna 172s, which are historically known for using the 100 LL, which is not really very good for the environment. We have started using diesel engines and so on. So from every point, from every city, from every branch of Airways Aviation, we have started a green initiative. So that's one of our missions as well. Moving forward, right? So this is what I wanted to address. And this is one of the first topics, and also the most important topic I would believe in today's world, because everyone for the last 2 to 3 months has been freaking out about the situation right now. The world is going through a pandemic, and this is quite a scary time, I understand. But that doesn't mean that the aviation industry is something you should stay away from. In fact, it's literally the opposite. In the next couple of minutes, I'll be explaining you how every single crisis or every single problem in the last 5 to 6 decades has only resulted in the aviation industry expanding and going much more faster right after the crisis came to an end. So in fact, if you are someone who's maybe still thinking of becoming a pilot and you're planning on starting your training, or if you're someone who has just started your pilot training course, it's actually a pretty good time to continue and keep moving, because this pandemic might last a couple more months. Hopefully within the next 6 months, things will start to get back to normal. But your pilot training lasts around 12 to 16 months, depending on the course, depending on the country you choose. And within that next 1 to 1.5 years, aviation industry is going to be back to its original place where the demand was way more than the supply. And that's why I would like to invite you all to look at this graph very carefully. Let's start from one of the major crises. I would start off with the 1990s, right? So if you specifically look at the 1990 and the 1991, the Gulf crisis created a little bit of problems, and the aviation industry was struck, but only for a couple of months. And if you notice in a long-term graph, that crisis only ended up becoming a curve, getting a little bit flatter, and it took off once again for the next couple of years. Again, the Asian crisis, the 9/11, which was one of the worst aviation problems around the world. Yes, there was a lot of problems. The industry had come to a complete stop, but only for a couple of months before it started recovering and it took off once again. And let's look at the most recent world recession in 2008. Now, this one, as you can see here, it took a deep hit, and everybody was like, oh, aviation is never going to be the same like before, and blah, blah, blah. Everybody, there's a lot of negative media out there. But if you notice what happened after the 2008 recession, it took off once again. And if you look at this graph, every 15 years, the requirement in aviation has only doubled every 15 years consistently, no matter how many crises we go through. So yes, COVID-19, no doubt, is one of the most scariest crises in the last 5 decades, but I can guarantee you that we will be back. Aviation is a very strong industry, and we will be back again, and we will be much stronger than ever before. Aviation industry is learning a lot of new things from this pandemic, and it will be ready to face much bigger challenges, and it will only double in the next 1 year to 1.5 years from what we are right now. And this is something which I want to clarify. I know I'm getting a lot of students and a lot of potential students who want to be pilots who contact me on a daily basis and say that, oh, we hear it's a very bad time to be a pilot. I would like to tell you guys that no. I do feel bad for someone who might have just graduated from a pilot training course 2, 3, 4 months ago. They might not be the luckiest for the next 6 to 7 months. But then the aviation industry is going to start expanding once again, and they will be fine. They'll find jobs. But for someone who's still planning on becoming a pilot, has not even started pilot training, there's nothing to worry about, because you'll take 12 to 16 months approximately to finish your training. And by then, the aviation industry is going to be back to normal. Now, Airways Aviation, a quick overview. As I mentioned, we we are a global flight school, so we're not just offering a single license. We're actually offering different pilot training courses. We offer a YASA license, we offer the Australian CASA license, and we also offer the Montenegrin Civil Aviation Authority license. So we offer some of the best licenses in the world, and we understand the difference. And if someone wants to start the training in Europe and then wants to continue the training in Australia, it is definitely possible, because we are a global flight school and we can make sure that we give you the exact license you need. Now, a global summary of Airways Aviation. We have trained in excess of 8,000 airline pilot cadets, in excess of 12,000 cabin crew, more than 3,000 aircraft maintenance personnel, and ground handling, more than 10,000. So this is just a global summary of what we've done in all our training locations combined. Now, fleet. I would like to take a moment here to talk about aircrafts and fleet. If you're joining a flight school, one of the most important things you need to look at is the fleet. We currently have a global fleet of 50 Diamond DA40, 42 aircrafts. Now, this is one of the best state-of-the-art equipments. You will see a lot of flight schools who still use 1970s and really old aircrafts. I'm quite proud to tell you that we use some of the best and the most newest aircrafts available out there. The facilities and training area, we have a massive training area. The facilities are state-of-the-art. They are built to last, and they are built to make sure they're built in a way that it lasts all the way until the next technological advancement comes up, and we're ready to, there are so many things we are ready already. Even, for example, there are a couple of things which were supposed to start from the end of 2020. There were a couple of regulations which would have asked flight schools to do a certain training after the 2020 December. We had already started doing that, for example, UPRT and so many other things. Our head office is in France, Montpellier. It's in south of France. It's a beautiful city, beautiful weather, and this is our family in Montpellier. An aerial picture of our facility in Montpellier. It's a massive facility, like I mentioned. We are based in the International Montpellier Airport. We have access to the aircraft. We have our own runway dedicated. The other international airports normally land on the other runway, and we have our own runway, so there's no delays. We have our own workshop for maintenance and lectures, cabin crew training simulators, more than 80 staff members. And the best thing about Montenegro, I'm in Montenegro, so I keep saying Montenegro, but I'm talking about Montpellier, France. And the best thing about Montpellier, France is the 300 days of sunlight it receives a day. And what happens is when it receives those 300 days of sunlight a year, flying happens a lot more, the delays are very minimum, and so on. And we have all the French authority approvals, the European YASA approvals, and so on. Some of the aircrafts being parked in France, you can actually see the number of aircrafts here. We have 5 simulators, Alcon fixed base simulators. You'll see some pictures of these later. These are some of the pictures. Again, I'm not going to focus too much on the aircraft maintenance, the cabin crew, and the ground handling and the workshops and so on. But if you're more interested in any of these courses, please feel free to get in touch with me or Safina, and we'll give you more details. But we are completely full. We are no longer accepting applications for maintenance, cabin crew, or ground handling for the year 2020. We are completely full. Even though we've had these pandemics, we're actually doing really well with admissions, and we're completely full for 2020 admissions for these 3 subcategories. For flight training, we're still accepting students, and we have a few more seats left for July and September intake this year. But for these 3 courses, the maintenance, cabin crew, and ground handling, we're completely full, and we'll be starting admissions for 2021 January. Now, about accommodation. We have in-house accommodation in our head office in Montpellier. We also have in-house accommodation in our facility in Spain. I'm going to show you some pictures in a few minutes. Our pilot training programs. I would like to briefly talk about the different pilot training programs we offer. Now, we offer everything from the basic private pilot license for fun and leisure, and all the way to a commercial multi-engine instrument rating, and even an airline transport pilot license. Now, the ATPL concept is mostly in Europe. If you do your training with us in France or Spain, we offer you the FATPL, the frozen ATPL license. If you plan on doing your pilot training with us in Australia, the concept in Australia is to complete your highest level of education with a commercial pilot license, multi-engine instrument rating. But in Australia, you also get a diploma in aviation. So there's a little bit of difference in pilot training in Australia and Europe, and I can go through some of the details if you're more interested. I'm sure some of you guys might ask questions in your open round session at the end, and I'll answer more details about that. But in a nutshell, we offer the PPL in all our locations. We offer commercial pilot license in all our locations. Frozen ATPL, we offer them only in Europe. We also offer the bachelor's in aviation combined with pilot training in Australia. And these are some of the most important things which we would like to focus on. And also, we're also doing training for the MPL. Air Arabia is partnered with Airways Aviation to do their core MPL flying with Airways Aviation Australia. So we've been working with a number of airlines. We'll get to that in a minute. More details, more pictures from our aircraft maintenance and cabin crew department. Even though you're doing pilot training, you can actually walk into some of these facilities in our academy and jump on one of these cool slides and have fun. I know I want to do it. I'm sure many other pilot students would also want to go and have fun on the cabin crew training slides and so on. Now, I would like to quickly give you a little bit more details about our bachelor's degree in Australia. Now, this is something unique to Australia. We're working with 3 different universities in Australia. There's the Southern Cross University, as you see in the picture. There's also CQU, and there's also the newest addition, Griffith University. We're working with 3 different universities who will give you a bachelor's combined with our pilot training program. So the universities have tied up, and this is an amazing program. If you guys are looking at doing similar programs, are currently being implemented in UK, and also we're looking for similar programs in France as well. But right now, the one which is up and running is the one in Australia. Again, the global fleet, it's one of the most important parts of a pilot training academy, and you should know that we have some of the best aircrafts in the world. We have one of the highest aircrafts in Europe. We're basically the second in the world and first in Europe when it comes to diamond aircraft. And this statement which you see on the screen, in quotations, the Airways Aviation Group owns and operates the largest fleet of Diamond DA-4042 aircraft. Now, this is a statement from Diamond Aircraft Manufacturing Company themselves. We pulled this statement out from their own press release. You can actually go on Airways, you can go on the Airways Aviation website, click on the news tab, and you will get connected to the Diamond Aircraft news column, which talks about this news. Let me show you some pictures. The one on the top right is a Cessna 172 in Australia, and the one on the top left is a Diamond DA-40 single engine aircraft. The aircraft on the bottom is a DA-42, and inside the aircraft, we have the state-of-the-art equipments and some of the most amazing state-of-the-art training devices. More pictures from our Diamond aircrafts in Australia and in Spain and France. This is a picture from Airways Aviation Spain. As you can see, this is known as our fair weather base because the weather is amazing and the flight delays are very minimum. Our simulators, right? So we have state-of-the-art FNPT Type 2 simulator. These are some of the best simulators in training today. We also have the ALSIM, the Megatronics, and there's many other different variations, and we have some of the best simulators, I can tell you. The second reason why you should join a flight school, the first being the fleet, good aircrafts, the second being the instructors. Now, not just because I'm a flight instructor, not just because I'm one of the pilot instructors, I also believe this to be true when I was doing my training. Some of the instructors are the reason why you either love a subject or hate the subject. Having the right ratio of good experienced instructors, older gentlemen with the right ratio of young instructors is extremely important, and that Airways Aviation has. If you see a lot of our social media pictures, you're going to see a lot of photos of our instructors, and you'll notice that we have a lot of young instructors, and we also have a lot of, older gentlemen, experienced airline retired instructors and so on, and that's very important. More pictures from our cabin crew in France. This is some of our pictures of the maintenance training organization in France. Our first class facilities, these are some of the pictures from our ATPL theory classrooms, the flight training, the student lounge on the bottom right from Australia. Again, this is one of the reasons why I would tell you to choose Airways Aviation for the first class facilities, the reputation we have, and so on. More pictures from different branches of Airways Aviation. We make sure that we take care of everything from student life to students having fun during the training and accommodation. Now, these pictures on the right are from our own accommodation facility in Spain. our accommodation in Spain is inside the airport, so you don't even have to leave the airport. You can be inside the airport campus and you'll have the accommodation and your classes and flight training and so on. More pictures from our Spanish accommodation facility. We also have our own pick up and drop. Many flight schools don't have that. We give you end-to-end solutions. We don't just tell you, all right, this is the fees and then plus, 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 plus. We give you a package including everything from travel, between the bases, picking you up every day in the morning, your accommodation, books and headsets, and everything is included. Now, the certifications and approvals, I'm sure everybody wants to know, who are we approved by? We are approved by some of the best organizations in aviation, the ICAO, the CAA of UK, the YASA, the Chinese CAA, the Montenegrin CAA, the DGAC of France, IATA, Australian CASA, PFE is the private education organization in UK who have approved us, the CRICOS in Australia. CRICOS is one of the most important organizations in Australia. Without their approval, you're not very reputed. We have the Civil Aviation from Kuwait who have approved us. We have the GCAA of UAE who have also approved us. So there's a number of organizations. Airlines, we work with a number of airlines. I'm sure you can find a list of these on our website as well. These are our industry partners. We work with Air Arabia and many other airlines, as you can see in this list, and the list goes on and on. We work with a number of airlines and aircraft manufacturing companies and simulator companies and so on. So our graduate employee track, this is quite important for students out there, I'm sure. We have our graduates successfully working for many different airlines, including Kuwait Airways, Gulf, Etihad, Qatar, and a number of them in Europe, such as Ryanair, and there's many more. We've only mentioned a few here. You can check out the longer list on our website. And this brings me to the end of my introduction session. I would request you all to follow us on social media because this is the best way to stay in touch with Airways Aviation. We are quite active on Instagram and we go live from different classrooms. We sometimes go live from Australia. We sometimes go live from France and Spain and Montenegro. So you can actually see live what's happening in our academy. You can see the students live and see how the training is being done. Sometimes we even go live from an aircraft. Well, yes, it is safe. The instructor and the student is flying an aircraft, and then there's a social media manager sitting in the back seat with the, you do get internet up to 5,000 feet, and we go live sometimes from the back seat, and you can actually see what's happening live. So that's why I would request, these pictures are quite old, but the name is still the same. So you can either follow us on Instagram or Facebook. We also have a dedicated page for Australia, but I would recommend you follow our generic page, which is Airways Aviation Academy on Facebook, or the Airways Aviation Academy on Instagram. And we have close to 9,000 followers now, and you should follow us for live updates. A couple more pictures from our different locations, and I'm going to start off with the open question answer round. I'm sure you guys might have a lot of questions, so I'm going to finish up in the next 2 to 3 minutes. This is a picture from our facility in Montpellier, south of France. More pictures from France. This is one of our pictures from Oxford. Ms. Safina was in Oxford right there in November 2019, and she can tell you more about our Oxford facility as well. This is our facility in Spain. We are the only flight school in Huesca Airport. This is the massive runway. We've got 2 runways, a smaller one and a bigger one. The entire facility is just for Airways Aviation. More pictures from Huesca, Spain, the classrooms, the student area to chill. And this is a picture from our airport in Australia. Gold Coast International Airport is one of our best facilities in the world. And you can actually look at these pictures and you can actually Google some of our photos, go on social media, you'll see more pictures. We have one of a kind facilities in Australia. This is a picture from our academy in Sunshine Coast, not too far away from Gold Coast. And we have just added Lismore, the 3rd location, a month ago. You will be seeing photos and videos of Lismore facility very soon on our social media, so stay tuned. Unfortunately, I don't have, because it's still under renovation, I don't have a picture of our Lismore facility, but it's up and running. We're just going through the final touches and so on, getting the branding, stickers and all of that. All right, so my favorite, Montenegro. Now, the reason I say this is my favorite is also because I live in Montenegro. The reason I live in Montenegro is because it was one of the most amazing facilities, one of the most amazing countries I've been to in Europe. And that's why me and my wife and I both decided to stay in Montenegro, and we live here. I'm one of the instructors, the CTKI here, the Chief Theory Knowledge Instructor. Montenegro is a very humble facility. It's a simpler base of airways aviation. But what also happens is it gives you some of the most amazing, breathtaking views in Europe. It's one of those countries which is a hidden gem, as I mentioned. The cost of living in Montenegro is very much close to the cost of living in India. The cost of rents, housing, food is extremely affordable. And that's one of the reasons why I would recommend. We have the highest number of Indian students right now in Montenegro. And that's one of the reasons why I would choose Montenegro for myself. And I would also choose the same for my fellow Indians who are looking for a good pilot training academy. There are two different options. You can either do the full flight training in Montenegro, or you can do half of the training in Montenegro and transfer to either France, Spain, one of our European bases to continue the second half of the training. That way you actually get the best of both the worlds. So these are some of the different parts of airways aviation, different bases of airways aviation. I hope I've given you a quick brief of what to expect from airways aviation and its different bases around the world. That brings me to the end of the session. I would like to request Ms. Safina to open the question answer round. If she has any questions and answers with regards to my session today, I would like her to start with the question answers from her different platforms. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening in. Thank you for being patient. I'm sorry I went a few minutes overboard, but that's basically what I wanted to tell you about airways aviation. Over to you, Ms. Safina.
Thank you so much. It was a wonderful session. I think most of the people have enjoyed, and also I have a lot of questions because we are live streaming on many platforms. And the first question that I have is, currently there were so many jobs are lost in aviation.
Sure.
How is it that we can choose aviation now?
Definitely, very good question and a very valid question. The most common question, I must tell you, in the last few months, which I have been encountering. And yes, I do understand there's a lot of airlines. I'm not sugarcoating the truth here. I'm accepting the fact that yes, a lot of airlines are getting rid of people. Yes, some airlines have also closed in Europe. Yes, I'm not denying any of those. Yes, I do agree that it is a pretty bad time for many industries, not just the aviation industries, but yes, the aviation industry is in the forefront and the aviation industry has been hit pretty bad. I agree with that, but this was the same back during the world recession. This is the same which happened during the 9/11 and many other crises which the aviation world has seen. So yes, today, aviation industry is in a bad situation, but let's just recap 6 months ago. 6 months ago, before the COVID-19 started, the aviation industry, you can go and Google it and you'll see all of these statistics. Boeing, Airbus, all the biggest aircraft manufacturing companies in the world were going crazy about the fact that we are unable to find pilots. This is a loop which will happen. Yes, because of COVID-19, things have come to a complete stop for the first few months. And like I already told you during my session, I do feel bad for students who have just graduated 3, 4, 5, 6 months ago. Yes, I feel bad for them. But it's not going to last forever. It's only going to be for 6 months, just like every other industry, just like every other country going through the worst right now. It is going to be better. And as I mentioned, once those COVID-19 numbers get better, once things start getting better, travel and aviation and tourism and export and import, these are some of the things which will never stop. And as I can show you in the graph once again, because the aviation industry has always doubled every 15 years, even during the SARS. Let's talk about SARS. When the SARS outbreak happened in China a couple of years ago, yes, the whole world was freaking out and the aviation did come to a stop for a few weeks. But then, right after that, it took off once again. So my only concern here is that, yes, people have lost their jobs. I know a lot of my friends who have also lost their jobs because airlines are cutting costs right now. But trust me, not just trust me, but all the aviation personnel, aviation industry experts are saying the same thing, that yes, in the next 6 months, things will eventually go back to normal. And then the aviation industries, airlines will all be back. Tourism will be back. Traveling will be back. And then the aviation industry, the required pilots, the amount of aircraft in manufacturing right now, all of those being delivered by 2022, there is not enough pilots in the world right now to cater to that demand. So yes, if you start your training today, you have nothing to worry about because you'll at least take 12 to 16 months to finish your training. And the world will be a different place in the next 6 months. And that's why I tell you that it is not a scary thing to jump into the industry. And those who are waiting right now, jobless, because they just graduated a few months ago, I will tell you the same thing. Stay patient, hang on, stay strong. It's just a couple more months and things will start getting better. And also, to shed some light on some of the positive news. There is so much of negative news out there that people like to share only the negative news. People don't like to share the positive news out there. There are so many airlines who have already started recovering, so many airlines who have already started operating. Ryanair has just announced that from the 1st of July, they are opening up every single flight route they have. Yes, I know a lot of Ryanair pilots who have lost their jobs, but Ryanair has already started recovering. There's so many other European airlines who have actually started recovering. And I am in the forefront of the airline contracts with Airways Aviation. And I have already been contacted by a number of airlines asking us to give them a list of students who will be graduating by end of 2020, early 2021, because they already want to start recruiting for students in the next 6 months. We have already been contacted by, for example, Ryanair emailed us saying, we would like your students to start applying with us as an expression of interest for October 2020. So the point is that yes, right now things look bad, but you're not going to become a pilot tomorrow. You will take 12 months and things will be much better by then. And that's what I would like to say.
Thank you. So we have a next question. Sir, what according to you is the best location for a pilot training among all the locations that you have shared?
Again, because I'm staying in Montenegro, I might be biased, but because of everyday experience, I would tell you, if you're an Indian, just like me, I would recommend you to do the full flight training in Montenegro or half of the training in Montenegro and the next half in France. These are my two best suggestions. Australia is also pretty good. Now, also it depends on the budget and depends on where you want to work as a pilot. If you're someone who's planning on working as a pilot in Europe, stick to Montenegro plus France pathway. If you're planning on working in anywhere else in the world, in the Far East and the Asia Pacific region, I would say Australia. Also, depending on the cost, Montenegro is one of the most affordable options compared to all 7 locations of Airways Aviation because the cost of living in Montenegro is, affordable. So the cost of training, the fuel, the taxes, everything is more affordable in Montenegro. The quality of training is the same as our European counterparts, but that's why I know the Indian market and we're very price sensitive. And that's why I tell you, if I have to just randomly choose one of our branches as the best one, I would go ahead with Montenegro.
Okay. Thank you. Are the facilities in Montenegro up to those in France or Spain?
Correct. Now, again, if you look at the aircraft itself, it's not the same aircraft. Now, I can guarantee you the same quality of training. The syllabus is the same. Now, all the books, if you talk to any of our current students in Airways Montenegro, they'll tell you that all the books they have received, the theory classes, the books, all the books were shipped all the way from our Oxford base. So all the books being utilized in Montenegro are Oxford, UK books. So the syllabus is exactly the same, the YASA syllabus we use. Now, the aircrafts are not the same. We have Diamond DA40, Diamond DA42 aircrafts in Spain, France, and UK. But Montenegro branch has a Cessna 172, which is the same aircraft as we have in Australia. It is pretty good. It is semi-glass cockpit. So it's not exactly the same aircraft, but they're pretty good. For the price you're paying in Montenegro, you're getting a pretty good deal. That's what I would like to tell you.
Okay, all right. I guess in the first question, you have answered most of it, but still I don't want to miss out any questions.
No worries.
So I'm going to ask ahead this question. What is the support that you will be giving after the completion of the course during the
Sure. Now, again, this is a question which requires a little bit more time, but I'm trying to keep my answers as short as possible. If you just zoom through our social media pages and go through the last couple of months, you will see that in our offices, in our bases in the last 1 year, we've had a number of airlines who came for recruitment inside our campus. We've had Ryanair, Flybe, Smartlinks. There's been so many others who came and selected our students right away from our campus. So that does happen, but they only select the best, obviously. So they won't select every single one. So that's number one. We will push you through the pipeline. Now, also the other thing is we will push you through We've had the highest number of students working for Kuwait Airways and Jazeera Airline. We've even had Indians and Lebanese passport holders working for Jazeera Airlines and so on in the past. Now, that being said, we will push you all the way through. We have very good contacts with airlines. We will push you all the way through. But the final interview, it's up to you to impress them and impress them with your skills. So we can't guarantee you that you will pass the interview, but I can guarantee you that I'll give you the best training, the best valued certification, and the most reputed license. And this is what I can tell you. And yes, we will push you all the way to the doorsteps of an airline interview, and then you should be confident enough to grab the opportunity.
All right. What are the jobs in aviation industry that we can get after the completion?
So now, pilot training and pilots are like the tip of the iceberg. Everybody, when they think about aviation, they only look at the top peak, which is the pilot training. There are so many other jobs out there in the aviation market. There is the ground handling, cabin crew. Well, people know about cabin crew already, so I'm not going to talk about that. But there's a lot of other things: aircraft safety maintenance, airport maintenance. There is so many different industries in the aviation sector that you can apply. But if you become a pilot, you don't just have to work as an airline pilot. Now, this might be surprising, but not everyone who graduates as a pilot will go on to become an airline pilot. There are a lot of other things where you would be required. There's bush flying, there is scenic flights, tourism, air taxiing, cargo services. There's a lot of these other smaller sectors, which, well, smaller as in they're not really small. They get paid well. They are a big industry, but people look at it in a smaller way. Like if I tell you that I'm working for a certain airline as a captain, everybody's like, wow. But the minute I tell them I'm working as a flight instructor, or I'm working as a cynic in tourism, they think, oh, maybe he is not really a good pilot or something, which is completely wrong. Airline, some of the flight instructors get paid as much as the airline pilots as well. So a lot of people don't understand that. Good experienced instructors get paid almost the same as the big airline pilots. So there's a lot of these other industries where you do have an opportunity. Air taxiing, cargo services, scenic flights, and all of these also have a lot of scope. Also has a lot of financial background as well, as in like they pay you well, but not a lot of people know about that. So there's a lot of other things you can do. I would personally recommend working as an instructor as well, because every flight school in Europe and every other parts of the world is badly in need of instructors. And this has been, I've been seeing this for the last 5 years. Every year, every flight school is headhunting our instructors. We have also been guilty of doing that. We have headhunted some of the instructors from other schools. That's because there's crazy demand for flight instructors. There's not enough in the world. And any flight school you contact will tell you that they need more flight instructors. So by doing that, you get some experience, and then you'll eventually get headhunted by an airline if you work as an instructor for 2-3 years. That's one of the best ways as well. Next question, ma'am.
Okay, what is the difference between BBA Aviation and Aviation?
BBA Aviation.
Aviation Management. Okay, let me just explain you. In India, we have a course called Bachelor's in Aviation, which is like cabin crew, ground handling and all of these things. So I guess one question from one of the participants is like, what is the difference between aviation and BBA Aviation?
Okay, all right, that makes sense. All right, so I'm so sorry, I'm not fully knowledgeable with the courses offered in India. I'm mostly dealing with our courses in Europe and Australia. So I might be a little bit off. I'm not 100% sure if this answer is right. But from what I understand from Ms. Safina, I can tell you that we also have something similar, right? So you can either become a full pilot training, you can become a pilot by doing a full flight training, pilot training course, or you can do a bachelor's in something else, a bachelor's in one of the aviation fields. So you have a backup degree. So you become a pilot and you also have a backup degree. And we do have that. And I was mentioning something very similar. So is this what they're talking about, ma'am? Something where you become a pilot and you also have a bachelor's degree. So yes, we have that with 3 different universities in Australia. We have with Bugs University in UK. Now, would I recommend this? I wouldn't completely recommend. This is not the first best option. I would recommend just doing a pilot training course. 12 to 16 months is more than enough. Now, will an airline ask you for a bachelor's degree? Not really, but this is a good backup, I would say. As an Indian myself, I've met a lot of Indian parents who always say that, what if God forbid something happens? What if your medical license is expired, or you have a medical condition in a few years and you're no longer able to work as an airline pilot? In that case, it's always good to have a backup degree. That I do agree with. But to become a pilot, you don't need a bachelor's degree. But as a backup, if God forbid something goes wrong, it's always nice to have a backup degree. Hopefully that answers your question. And it completely depends on your age. If you're a high school graduate, you've just finished your 12th, you want to be a pilot, you can definitely do that. But if you're a little bit scared about the background safety net, then you can go for a bachelor's as well.
Okay, so the next question, if I want to choose two different locations, do I choose my location in the beginning of the course, or do I have an option of choosing in between?
Actually, both. Even before you start the training, I would normally give you a training plan, and I would tell you that you would do, for example, I would give you different options. You can either do the full flight training in France, or you can do the full flight training in Spain, or you can do the full flight training in Montenegro. Different prices, different contract, different system. Or I'll offer you, why don't you do the first half of the training in Montenegro and the second half of the training in France? And this is how much it's going to cost you. This is how much how long it's going to take you. And I'll give you different training plan. And you sign the contract based on whatever you feel is best for you. Now, halfway into the training, if you realize, you know what, I think I like Montenegro, I'm just going to complete the full training in Montenegro, I don't want to go to France. Yes, you can do that. You're not going to, we can change the contract. You would pay for whatever you've done. And yes, to answer your question in a very simple way, it is possible. Before or in between, you can change your mind. But there are a few technical things where you cannot. Like, for example, once you've started doing your ATPL exams, all 14 ATPL exams have to be done in one location. You cannot do first 6 exams and then you realize, oh my God, the ATPL exams here are too difficult. Somebody told me that it's easier in Montenegro, let me go there. You can't do that. You have to start and finish each stage in one location. You can finish one stage and go to another country for a second stage, but you can't stop halfway in between a stage. Hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you. How much money do we make working at the airport?
Working at the airport, that's a very vague and a very general question, because the answer is also going to be very vague, because the number can be anywhere from a very small number to a very big number, depending on which airport, depending on which airline, depending on which country, depending on which license you have. So, for example, if you look at the price scale, the most expensive license we have right now, the most expensive training we have right now is the full flight training in France, right? So that's approximately 95,000 plus euros and so on. Then we have Australia. Australia is a little bit more, I would say like 20% lower when it comes to the prices. And then if you look at the lowest, or when I say lowest, I'm just talking about the price. The quality is still the same. The most affordable license, for example, full flight training in Montenegro is almost 60,000, including accommodation. Now, if you look at that scale, 60, 75, 95, if you get your entire training in Montenegro, the license which you get, and compare it to somebody who did his full flight training in France, those two licenses are not exactly the same. If two people go to an airline interview, one graduated from Aviation France from day one all the way to the end, spent 95,000 euros plus, and the other guy spent 60,000 doing the full flight training in Montenegro. Obviously, there is a difference. The reputation, the license itself is going to be a little bit different. So obviously, there will be a little bit of difference. So when you land a job, the amount you're going to make, the salary you're going to make is also going to be proportional. You can't expect the same salary if you're in a completely different part of the world, if you have a different license and so on. So in a very simple way, the sky is the limit. Experienced airline captains make extraordinarily high amounts, which are outside your imagination sometimes. And sometimes I also know some extremely basic pilots who have just started off with no experience, who barely make a big amount. They make a very decent amount, very small amount. So it all depends on your experience and at which stage of your career you are.
All right. The next question is, which is the highest license and how many years will it take to complete the entire pilot course?
So the highest license is the FATPL, as you can see in this page here, Frozen Airline Transport Pilot License. This one would be, I would say, would be the highest license recognizable in the world, and also the most expensive license in the world. But yes, in short, this is the best and the highest license.
Okay, so do we have any entrance exam or any exam to get admission, or what are the admissions based on what?
Definitely, definitely. We are definitely not one of those flight schools who are just like, yep, sure, come in for everyone. We have a very strict admission process. We have something called as a compass test, hand-eye coordination, physics, math, memory, multitasking. There's 7 different modules. You can do this assessment test with Sanz International as well. We will be, we've authorized them to conduct these assessment tests as well. So we have different assessment testing centers all around the world, in Europe, in Middle East, in India, and different parts of the world. So there's a very rigorous assessment test, very strict assessment test. Only after you finish and pass with a 70% or more on those assessment tests. Now, we don't scrutinize your high school grades too much. Yes, we want to make sure that you've passed your high school, you've done your 12 years of high school, but we're not going to take your grades and scrutinize it too much. If you got 65% or 95%, we're not really too worried about it, but we're too worried about the scores you get on our assessment test. And that's the main decision maker. And then obviously there's a class 1 medical as well. You have to be medically fit. You have to show certificates that you're medically fit. There are local doctors in India who can do the class 1 aviation style medical exam and give you a certification. And after you pass the assessment test with basic math. Now, we don't need you to have trigonometry, calculus, or any of those rocket science level physics. It's very basic stuff. I'm sure you can contact Madam Safina and they'll give you some of these preparation packs. We'll give you what to expect during an assessment test and so on. So we'll get into that later. But yes, there's a very strict assessment test to join the academy.
I am very passionate about becoming a pilot, and I have been doing a research, and I have heard a lot about Montenegro campus and its weather. As a pilot, I see that weather is most important, and most of the time, the flying time in the Montenegro is good. So what would be the costing for the entire course in Montenegro?
So a simple answer, the entire course in Montenegro is 60,000 euros. Now that it does include the accommodation and so on. So from 0 to your full CPL multi-engine instrument rating is going to cost you 60,000 euros, including accommodation. And yes, thank you so much I'm glad you're following us on social media, I believe, which is why you know so much about the Airways Aviation Montenegro weather. And thank God, we've not stopped for a single day during the entire pandemic. I must also tell you something amazing about Montenegro. We are corona free. We have 0 cases in Montenegro. I wish and pray for every country in the world to have the same figure. But our corona figures never went more than 250 to 275 cases. We only had 7 people who died, who were all extremely old. And now those cases, almost everyone from those 270 infected have recovered. And we have 0 cases currently active cases of COVID-19. And the reason with that is the country closed its border early March, even before the first confirmed case of COVID-19 was confirmed. And March and April, we continued flying. We never stopped. There was no lockdown on the flight academy. We continued operation. Everything was normal. The markets and the cinemas and the schools all closed, but the supermarkets and everything very normal. We had no chaos here, and thank God we opened up 2-3 weeks ago, and the country is back to normal. And that's one of the good things about Montenegro. We have survived through the COVID-19. I hope and pray there's no second wave. Inshallah, hopefully that doesn't happen. And that's one of the things I also want to tell you. Our branch in UK, Spain, France closed on the 16th of March because of the local government advice. And France just recently started on the 18th of May and they started flying. But UK started last week. They went back to flying because they had to follow the regulations of the government. But Montenegro never stopped for a single day. We continued flying throughout the pandemic. And that's something which I feel really happy about.
Okay, so now I guess we have another question. What will be the fees if I choose Montenegro and France together?
Sure. If you choose Montenegro and France together, it is approximately 79,000 UK pounds. That includes the accommodation in Montenegro and France. That's 79,000 UK pounds. Again, I can send you the detailed cost and so on later. Even that program has 2 options. The 79,000 UK pounds Montenegro plus France does not include MCC, multi-crew cooperation, which is a major last 2 weeks of the course. If you plan on doing the MCC as part of your course, then that brings us to 84,000 UK pounds, Montenegro plus France, including MCC. So there's, again, the costing is not just one cost. I can give you, like a lot of flight schools do that, they'll show you a very small figure, and then they'll tell you, oh, but plus and plus and plus for accommodation, plus books, plus this, plus that, plus add-on courses. We don't do that. We give you the full package. If you want every single thing, half course in Montenegro, half in France, including the multi-crew cooperation, which is something normally the airlines do. But we have started doing that as part of our flight training program. And that's going to be approximately 84,000 UK pounds. Or you can go for the 79,000 UK pounds course, half in Montenegro, half in France. And you will have to do the MCC with an airline eventually. Or if you do the 60,000 euros full flight training in Montenegro, that's pretty good enough as well. If you're an Indian, if you're planning on working in India, the full flight training in Montenegro is good enough.
Is that accommodation cost as well?
That's correct. Books, fees. We pick you up in the morning every day. We drop you after class for theory and theory classes and for your flight training. All of that is included. The only thing which is not included in the 60,000 euros for Montenegro is obviously your food and your mobile expenses, cinemas, I don't know, fun activities on the weekend. That's all yours.
Okay, all right. And what would be the ROI of the entire course if we become a pilot?
Sure. Now the ROI, the return on investment, that's such a typical Indian question, that pretty much sounds like my mother right now. I mean, this is something which is so deep in our, in our culture as Indians, myself and, yourself, this very well. This is definitely a question from a parent.
Yeah.
It has to be a parent. It has to be an elderly lady or a gentleman. Right. So the return on investment is quite high when compared to the other industries. When you compare doctors and lawyers, I'm going to use these two examples because obviously in India, when I wanted to become a pilot, I must tell you, my father, for some reason, wanted me to be a doctor, and I really hated biology. And he's like, I want you to be a doctor. And I'm like, I really hate biology. And I was really bad in biology. So everybody wants you to be something, right? So in India, what I've also noticed is you have only three options. You can either be a doctor or an engineer, or you can be a disgrace to your family. So this is how the Indian mentality works. And especially if you choose something out of the box, everybody freaks out. So that happened with me as well. And yeah, when I chose pilot training as a career, everybody freaked out. Everybody had all these, opinions and so on. So yes, the return on investment from my experience in the industry, I can tell you, when you spend a lot of money to become a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer, the return on investment is definitely not even close to what you have as a pilot. There's a beautiful study being done, which we have used on our flyers. I'm going to send a copy of that flyer to Ms. Safina. She'll share it with you guys. The return on investment for pilots is literally, for every dollar you've spent is $9. And they have done a study for every dollar being spent for becoming a doctor, engineer, and so many other careers. Even doctors, it was for every dollar you've spent on becoming a doctor, the return was $6. And I was surprised. I'll share the study's review, which we have now. So basically, we took that study, pasted that picture on our Airways Aviation flyers on the bottom. So the ROI, I must tell you, yes, don't just look at, but right now the airlines are, again, we'll go back into that loop, right? But right now the airlines are not hiring and this and that. Yes, that's all true. We have all accepted the fact, but that's not a long-term scenario. It's only going to be for a few months. And if you look at the amount you've spent on your pilot training and the amount, and also I know a lot of my friends who graduated with me from St. Joseph's, who went into engineering. Some of them became, different things. I know some of my engineers who got like extremely high ranking, and I know them for 3-4 years working for extremely low salary, for like unimaginably low salaries. And they're like high scoring engineers, civil engineers and mechanical engineers. So the return on investment, if you notice, is not that high in most of the other industries. But a flight instructor, our Airways Aviation is right now posting and literally in some cases begging some of our own instructors or our students to become instructors. And the first initial salary, if you look at the figures for the most basic instructor salary, if you graduate as a pilot, God forbid, let's say you don't get a job as an airline pilot immediately. Even if you start working as a flight instructor, even if you start working as an instructor in an academy, the initial salaries itself, depending on the branch, can be anywhere from 2,500 to 1,800 euros per month. And that is the initial. And I'm telling you, I don't know of any of my friends who are engineers who got such a high ROI on at least for the first 2-3 years. Yes, I know some of my cousins and some of my seniors who are doing extremely well, making a lot of money as an engineer. Yes, but eventually after like 5-6 years of experience. But this is one of those industries where you don't have to spend a lot of time waiting for a decent amount. Yes, for the first 1 year, you'll have to struggle a little bit just like any other industry, but the ROI is going to be quite high in aviation.
We have another question. Okay. We are a college from Bangalore from past 5 years and running an aviation course. In case if our students choose to go for international trip, okay, which is the best location, and is it possible that we are allowed to?
Definitely yes, yes, and yes to all of those questions. And definitely a yes to every single. We've already organized something very similar with universities in Turkey. We've done that with many other. We have active discussions with Safina, and we are planning on doing something very similar as well with Indians. So she's the best person for you to stay in touch with, and she'll give you more details. And yes, I would definitely choose Montenegro or even France. Based on the visa flexibility, I would start off with Montenegro. There's a lot of Indians here in Montenegro. So yes, if you want to organize like summer camps, which we are planning on doing, we're planning on doing all these introduction courses and so on. So yes, from people from your university can come in for a quick 4-week flight training course, short programs and so on. And, we can definitely do all of those. Yes.
Is Montenegro visa is 100%?
We have never had a single visa rejection in the last 4 years. And we have had students from Libya. We've had students from Lebanon, Iraq. Obviously, we've had a lot of Indians now, but Libya and Iraq are some of those countries and lists where it's extremely impossible for them to get visas to most of the European countries. And that's one of the things. We've had 180 Libyan students, 160 Libyan students through the doors of Montenegro in the last 3 to 4 years. And we've never had a single visa rejection, even with Sudanese and Iraqis and many other. We've had a Nigerian guy just recently who got a visa 2 weeks ago, 1 week ago. So yes, I would say Montenegro. And the good thing is most of these Libyan students, after spending 6 to 8 months of training in Montenegro, they then applied for a Schengen visa to go to Spain Airways Aviation to continue the training. And again, no rejections. We have tried applying for a Spanish, UK, or one of those other European visas for some of our students while they were sitting in their home country. And 80%, 70% rejections and so on. It was really high because Libya and, had a bad issue for the last few years. But the same Libyans got the visas in first attempt in Montenegro. After spending 6 to 7 months in Montenegro, got the visas to Spain and France and UK in the first attempt. So that's why I would say Montenegro would be the best pathway. You can either do the full flight training in Montenegro or just use Montenegro as a stopover for the first 6 months, stage 1, stage 2 training, go to the next branch for stage 3, 4, and 5. It's completely up to you.
Thank you so much. So the questions are done.
Wow, that's great. Thank you so much for really good questions. Thank you, Ms. Safina, for organizing this session. I'm really looking forward to checking out the recordings and doing more of these sessions. And I would request everyone to please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and actually just follow us on one of those because we post similar content. So as long as you're following, I think Instagram would be my favorite because we go live mostly on Instagram. And sometimes we just post footage on Facebook and so on. So that brings me to the end of the session. And again, I would like to wish each and every one of you around the world who's listening to me right now, or whoever is watching this video later on YouTube, I would like to wish you all safety and security. Please stay home, follow your government regulations, whatever it might be different. I mean, I can't stay at home because things are back to normal in my country. So please follow your local government advice. Stay safe, really stay away from all the things which you should. I know everybody knows what's happening around the world. I really hope and wish, and stay confident, stay hopeful, and aviation is a very strong industry. We will get through this. And that's the last thing I would like to tell you. We will definitely get through this.
Okay, so thank you so much everyone for watching us and being live here. And in case if I have missed out any questions, please do get in touch with us. We would be very happy to clear all your doubts. And please, if you have any questions, please write back to us. And you can follow us on Sanz International Facebook page and Insta handle. Okay, if you have any questions, please do feel free to get back to us. And thank you so much for watching us. And thank you so much, Mr. Rizwan, for clearing all the doubts. And I must say this, we have been doing a lot of live sessions, and most of the questions that we have received is with the aviation industry.
That's very good. That's great to know, and I'm sure there are better days to come, and yeah, we will be going back to our regular aviation demand very soon.
Yes, with this, I would like to inform all the candidates the application is open for the admission for 2020 intake for pilot training, and as well as cabin crew and other courses for 2021. Please feel free to get in touch with us. Thank you so much for watching us. All the best. Stay safe. Stay happy. All
Thank
right.
you. Take care. Thank you so much, Ms. Safina, and give my regards to everyone around you, all your employees, and
Yes.
everyone who's been working really hard behind the screens
Yes.
to make this a success. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.